With the new year brings new goals, in which investing is this mysterious area many people find quite daunting and confusing. So in this video, we're going to break down how to start investing to really accelerate your financial goals of the new year ahead. More importantly, however, we're going to cover 4 essential steps that you should be taking before you even set foot on your investing journey. And these 4 steps will ensure you can build a long-term and sustainable investing habit, which will work no matter your financial situation. Number 1 is high interest debt. The majority of adults are in debt, and today's society has programmed us to accept that this is the norm. Within the UK, the average unsecured debt per adult is £4,125. And unsecured debt is defined by any debt that is not secured by an asset such as credit cards, personal loans and overdrafts. But this figure grows to a whopping £29,125 if you include car finance. This brings back the classic quote, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't even like." One of the biggest issues with high interest debt is that it restricts your monthly income, therefore restricting the amount you can save and the amount of flexibility you have with your money. Making it a priority to pay off your high interest debt is the best risk-free and the best tax-free investment that you can make. Let's say you have credit card debt at 30%. By paying off that debt, you have made a guaranteed return of 30% by paying off the principal. So what interest level counts as high interest debt? Well, this varies person to person. Some people use 6%, some people use 8%, and some people use 10%. Generally, 10% is the benchmark because historically, investing in the stock market should return you 10% on average year on year. However, I view high interest debt as anything not secured by an asset. It's just a matter of viewpoint. It's a matter of personal preference. Number 2, emergency fund. What traps a lot of people in the high interest debt trap, along with not being able to build a long-term habit of investing, is living paycheck to paycheck. Imagine the kind of freedom you could have if you had 3 to 6 months of living expenses in your bank account saved. The peace of mind knowing that if you lost your job, if you lost your business, if your car broke down, if you needed healthcare treatment, you had the money available. Being able to sleep peacefully at night knowing you don't have to rely on credit cards and you don't need to ask family or friends for help. Now, when calculating this, you want to work out your minimum spend when it comes to your fixed expenses and your variable expenses. That gives you a total expense cost per month. You then want to multiply that number by either 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months, depending on personal preference. Once you've built this emergency fund, do not touch it. That is the golden rule. It's called emergency fund for a reason. Ideally, you want to move it to a completely separate bank account, and if you do dip into it, you want to replenish those savings as soon as possible. Number 3, employee pension match. Now we're ready to take our first step towards investing. You want to ensure that you're enrolled into your employee pension scheme, but up to the point where your employer actually matches your contributions. Now in the UK, all of this is referred to as your pension contributions, but in the UK, this is referred to as your 401k. And when we say employer match, this means for every £1 you contribute, your employer will contribute £1 as well. So for example, let's say you earn £100,000 a year and your employer matches your contributions at a 6% level. This means you need to contribute 6%, so £6,000. As a result, your employer will match that and also contribute £6,000. As a result, from a £6,000 investment, you now have a total pot of £12,000. You're basically making 100% on your investment straight away. In addition, this is one of the most tax efficient investments you can make because your contribution is at a gross salary level, so before it's being taxed. In addition, when you draw down your pension, you won't be taxed. Number 4, mentality. The final step before we begin to invest is mentality. Now, a lot of YouTube videos don't cover this. They just cover the mechanical steps towards investing. But the truth is, investing is a mental game. It's all about psychology. Whenever I invest, I have a 5 to 10 year mentality. Once that money's gone into a stock, I am not touching it. I have no plans to touch that stock in the short term. Yes, I may rejig my portfolio from stock A to stock B, but I will not sell any stocks for cash in the short term. And the real benefit to that is compound interest, because for every £1 that I withdraw, I could be losing £10 or £15 in compound interest. Compound interest has often been described as the 8th wonder of the world, and it's when your interest starts earning interest. Think of compound interest as a snowball effect. The longer you leave your money in that account, the more momentum it gains. the faster and the bigger it builds. This is great when you're young because you have a larger time horizon to play with. However, if you're in later stages of life, you need to think beyond yourself and think about your children, for example. Start thinking about providing your kids a better platform, a platform that you didn't have, a financial safety net which they can then build on, because unfortunately financial wealth is a generational game. Number 5, investing. Now that we've taken all of these steps, how do we begin to invest and how do we create a long-term sustainable habit on top of the steps that we've already discussed? First, you need to open a brokerage account, and there's a number of different brokerages you can sign up for, but it will vary depending where you live. These are some examples in the UK, but personally my bank allows me to buy stocks and shares through their platform, so that's what I use. Each platform is essentially the same, they just charge different fees. Some might have different stocks and different shares that you might not be able to get on the other, but just make sure you're signing up to a broker which has been approved by the regulatory body in your country. When opening the account, make sure it's an ISA account if you're from the UK or a Roth IRA if you're in the US. These are tax efficient accounts which provide you with a tax allowance. So if you're from the UK and you sign up to a UK ISA account, this allows you to invest £20,000 per year tax-free. As a beginner, I would start off by researching index funds. Now, what is an index fund? Well, imagine a basket with all the largest corporations and companies in the world. What an index fund does is it essentially creates this basket and allows you to buy a portion of it. This means you own a proportion of all these companies in the basket. On social media, the most common one you'll hear is the S&P 500, which is America's largest 500 corporations. And the final step is setting up a payday direct debit straight to your brokerage account. To build a sustainable investing habit, we need to learn to pay ourselves first. What the majority of people do is they get their paycheck, they pay their bills, they then treat themselves mid-month to going out, buying some new clothes, and then they see what is left over to invest, and most of the time that answer or that balance is zero. By setting a payday direct debit up, it forces you to budget, but more importantly, it forces you to pay yourself first. How much you choose to invest is personal, but I would set 10% as a minimum. I normally do 20% a month, and it's better to use a percentage target rather than a monetary target, because this means your investing will move in line with your earnings. So if your earnings increase, so will your investing. If your earnings decrease, again, so will your investing. If you have any more useful tips or even questions, make sure you leave them in the comments and subscribe for more finance content.